two, 1, 2, 3.
Welcome. I'm Wayles Browne, member of Ithaca DSA, and today we're speaking to Deirdre Silverman and Jonathan Brenneman about the Not on Our Dime campaign. This interview took place a day before Hamas invaded Israel. That's why we don't mention it. Deirdre, you are an activist here in Ithaca, member of Ithaca DSA, member of Jewish Voice for Peace. And can you introduce yourself, perhaps, but also introduce Jonathan to tell who he is?
I've been involved with Jewish Voice for Peace, and in Ithaca, we're a combined group, Jewish Voice for Peace and the Committee for Justice in Palestine. We have worked for years to bring speakers to the community, show films, stage community rallies in defense of Palestinian rights and raising issues about Israel's treatment of Palestinians. We heard about the Not on Our Dime Act, which is currently in the New York State Legislature, and it really fit in with what we've been doing. We contacted Jonathan Brenneman, who lives in Syracuse and is a Palestinian American and activist working on this campaign. Jonathan has on-the-ground experience as a community peacekeeper in Hebron, and he will talk more about that. So, Jonathan, can you talk about how you got involved with the campaign?
Yeah, so really, I would trace it back to a decade ago when I was working with community peacemaker teams in the South Hebron Hills, in areas that the Israeli military was trying to depopulate of Palestinians. The Masafra Yatta area, where over 1,000 Palestinians lived in a variety of small villages that the Israeli government was claiming they needed to use as a military firing zone. While also at the same time claiming they wanted to preserve it as natural habitat, while at the same time allowing illegal Israeli settlers to move into that land and take over the lands they were removing Palestinians from. This small-scale form of ethnic cleansing that was part of Israel's larger campaign was something that we worked on the ground to try to stop, but recognizing there were huge forces behind trying to get this shifted. Fast forward about six or 7 years, and I was back in the States and hearing from Palestinians on the ground that were recognizing that more and more, it wasn't like all of Israel that was trying to push them out, but there were specific organizations that were pushing the Israeli government to displace more Palestinians, to move more exclusivist Jewish settlements into those lands that were kind of the tip of the spear of Israel's colonial ambitions. And realizing that they were being funded by organizations in the US. And after doing even just a little research, it was very clear that some of the biggest funders were in the state of New York and were registered as 501c3 charities. Now, understanding that illegal Israeli settlements are war crimes, they are against the Geneva Convention. It seemed pretty obvious to us that giving money to settler organizations is not charitable. And so a group in the US decided to try to find ways to stop this obvious abuse of charitable status. And we looked at different ways to do it. And one of the strategies that honestly we didn't really expect was that we would find a legislator that wanted to write a bill that really made explicit that war crimes aren't charitable, that Israeli settlements that have been given a pass so often need to be held to account. And so that's where the Not on Our Dime Act was written as a bill by Representative Zohran Mamdani in the Assembly and Representative Jabari in the Senate. And we are now campaigning for that bill to pass.
Okay. Yeah, Jonathan Brenneman, let me ask you to start back a bit.
Right.
We're talking about U.S. organizations that have the status of charities, and when we say that magic number 501c3, that's part of the federal tax law that says who gets to have the status of a tax-free charity and who doesn't. But you're talking about something within the state of New York. How do you get to do that?
Yeah, that's right. So as we were researching like what strategies might we use, we looked at first the IRS, right? And people have tried to push the IRS, but that is a large bureaucratic institution at a national level that is doing a lot of different work. And there's really no leverage or point to try to get the IRS to investigate. It's a really dense institution. But charities are not only at a national level. Every charity needs to be registered in a state, and the state also has oversight and has laws about how those charities must function. So this New York State Attorney-General has laws and directives around how to hold accountable charities and organizations, right? The New York Attorney General famously went after an organization, the NRA, just recently. So similarly, with any 501c3, they have to abide by the laws of the state of New York. And the laws currently are kind of broad and vague and can be used almost at the discretion of the Attorney General as they want. So what this bill is saying is that it's just clarifying the law, because basically the laws on charity say you have to be doing a public good to have this special status where you don't have to pay taxes on donations and other things. And what this is saying is war crimes, displacement, home demolitions, those things aren't charitable. They are not making the world a better place. This is not a controversial statement. So, but it's clarifying for this very particular purpose, where we have so much data and so much research showing that New York state money is subsidizing war crimes.
Okay, this means that members of the public here in New York State may be making donations to some number of charities that are here in New York State, and the charities send the money to Israel, and the money there funds people settling on other people's land. Is that true?
Absolutely. And like I said, we have the evidence behind it, millions of dollars, and we are sure much more than we have access to for the amount that's going, but we know it's in the millions of dollars every year going to a variety of Israeli settler organizations.
And can you mention the main charity or one or two main charities that have been doing this?
Yeah, so again, we started from hearing from Palestinians on the ground, specifically in the Masafra Yalta area I referenced earlier, as well as the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of Jerusalem, a historically Palestinian neighborhood that there is an official Israeli government policy to, this is their word, quote, Judaize, to make it have no more Palestinians and have Jewish only population in that neighborhood. And so they told us about a number of charities and it turns out they're all getting money donated to them from the same charity in New York, the Central Fund of Israel. So, yeah. Did you have another question there, or shall I?
Okay, so the New York State group is called the Central Fund of Israel, and somebody might give money to it, thinking that it would somehow help Israel. But does it also do that, or does it only give money for settlements?
It gives money to a variety of different organizations in Israel as well as in settlements. But we know that they are giving millions of dollars to some of the most egregious settler organizations.
Okay, so now you've gotten two New York state legislators, to introduce a bill that, will the bill definitely put a stop to this, or will the bill just say the Attorney General can put a stop to it if she wants to? What is in the, the bill is called Not on Our Dime?
Yes.
What is it called?
Yes, it's called the Not on Our Dime Act, and it makes a directive to the Attorney General. So the Attorney General would have to investigate these organizations, find that, and fine any organization that has been shown to be giving money to Israeli settlements in settler organizations, would be fined a minimum of $1 million and would have their 501c3 status taken away. It also gives protections to, or the opportunity for Palestinians to bring civil lawsuits against such New York State organizations.
That sounds like quite a hefty bill. We're talking to Jonathan Brenneman of the Not on Our Dime campaign, and Deirdre Silverman of Ithaca DSA and Ithaca JVP. So the bill to do all these things has been introduced in the state legislature, is that right?
That is correct.
This year or when?
It was right at the end of the last session of this year. Yes.
So
session that ended in June. Yeah.
So the legislature only meets for half of each year, right? So,
yes.
And so there's got to be a new legislative session beginning in January. Is the bill still going to be there, or does it have to be brought in again? But
it will still be there. Yes.
Okay. And okay. Deirdre, repeat that. We didn't hear.
My understanding is that it will still be there through the end of the next legislative session. I also want to mention, because this show is connected to DSA, that both of the legislators who have introduced the bill, Zohran Mamdani and Jabari Brisport, as well as the other legislators who have signed on as co-sponsors, are all members of DSA.
Speaks well for DSA. How many co-sponsors are there now?
I'll have to check. I believe it's 4.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 legislators introduced it, and then when a legislator does that, one of their colleagues can sign on and say, I'm a co-sponsor. And okay. We're about half through with our time slot, although it seems that we just began talking. So the bill has been introduced, both in the state Senate and the state Assembly. And what I guess what happens with bills is that a new bill gets sent to a committee, and the committee has to look through it and can hold hearings on it. Has this happened yet, or do we have to wait for January?
We at least have to wait till January, and honestly, we will likely be waiting a lot longer. The leadership in Albany is not happy about this bill. which is what we expected. This is a groundbreaking piece of legislation. There has never been a piece of legislation in the state of New York that is in any way supportive of Palestinian rights, as this one is, even at the most basic. And so this is, in many ways, like a watershed moment. And we did not expect that politicians would be very quick to sign on to it. That is why we are pushing now a grassroots effort to talk to our legislators, to get broad-based support, because we understand that the public has a very different understanding of what's going on in Palestine than those in Albany do. And that's why efforts like the ones happening in Ithaca are so important.
For the Not on Our Dime Act, you now are running the Not on Our Dime campaign. And what is that doing around the state? And Deirdre, you can tell us what it's doing here in the Ithaca area. But Jonathan first, what is the campaign doing around the state?
Sure. There's a belief in Albany that if someone touches Palestine, that it will destroy their political career. So first of all, we wanted to show that there is broad-based support for those who have already signed on, and then also to build with many other progressives around this issue, with many other progressive organizations around this issue, to push legislators to understand that their constituents believe in Palestinian rights and that this should be an easy yes vote.
Okay, and Deirdre Silverman, we're working on that here in Ithaca, are we? Or
we hope to do two things. One is to raise public consciousness through publicizing the act, canvassing, reaching people and explaining it to them, and also reaching out to our legislators. We would like to see the co-sponsorship expand beyond DSA members in the legislature. We have very progressive representatives of this for this area, and our assembly member has run unopposed, so her seat is fairly safe. We're hoping to speak to her and convince her of the wisdom and the moral authority that would go along with supporting and co-sponsoring this bill.
okay.
And can you speak a little about, because I don't know the history of this, the choice of calling it Not on Our Dime?
Yeah, of course. We wanted to make it very clear that currently New Yorkers, through our taxes, are subsidizing Israeli settlement crimes. I mean, one of these organizations, Hashomer Yosh, literally, as a private organization, rented a bulldozer and bulldozed the Palestinian home. And that was considered a charity, right? That organization gets millions, and their largest funder is the Central Fund of Israel, that is being subsidized by New York taxpayers. And so that's our dime going to that, right? That's our money. And we've had enough of that. So that's the idea behind the Not on Our Dime campaign.
Okay, subsidized by New York State taxpayers. That doesn't mean that the state government is handing over money, but it means that individuals contribute and then they deduct those contributions.
Right. So that, but I mean, that's money that should be taxes going to things here in New York, right? Going to schools, going to roads, going to all of these things that we want the government spending money on. But instead, it's being funneled out of the tax system, away from those things, away from healthcare, away from schools, and to literally the destruction of people's homes.
Okay, we're talking to Jonathan Brenneman of the Not on Our Dime campaign to try to get the Not on Our Dime Act passed. Jonathan, what other organizations around New York State do you have working with you on the campaign?
We have built up a very large coalition of both New York organizations as well as national organizations, and organizations that have explicitly worked on Palestine in the past, and ones where Palestine is not their main issue, but they recognize the connections. So the Center for Constitutional Rights, Jewish Voice for Peace, New York, the Movement for Black Lives, the Muslim Democratic Club of New York. Then we have also like the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, Palestinian Youth Movement, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanction for Freedom, Justice, and Equality Coalition, CARE New York. We have local organizations like the Syracuse Peace Council or Brooklyn for Peace, or the Ithaca CJP, JVP, and of course, religious affiliated organizations as well, Muslim, Christian, and Jewish organizations, including many of the local JVPs, if not now, Friends of Sabeel North America, it's a Christian organization, the Episcopal Peace Fellowship. Yeah, we have a broad group of New York State organizations that are helping with this campaign.
And Deirdre Silverman, you have some local organizations behind you in this work?
Local organizations, and we're also working on building an upstate coalition. So we've had Zoom calls, organizing calls, where we've had people from the Corning, Elmira area, Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo, again, representing, as Jonathan said, different faith traditions, different political activist groups.
Good to hear it. Jonathan, we are getting down to our last 5 minutes. If people want to find out more about the act and more about your campaign, what can you send them to? You have a website for Not on Our Dime?
Yeah, the easiest way to get involved is to go to notonourdime.com. There's a get involved and take action page where you can see if there are local actions that you can take, as well as participating in letter writing campaigns to your elected officials to let them know that they should be signed on to the Not on Our Dime bill.
And a bit of an ironic question, is your organization a charity? Are you tax deductible?
This is a campaign. So the Not on Our Dime is not an organization. It is there are many organizations working together on this campaign. Some are 501c3s, some are 501c4s, some are political group, some of the representatives' offices are part of the campaign as well. And there are individuals that are part of this campaign. There's a lot of different groups that believe that this is the morally right thing to do and have joined in.
Deirdre, have you been talking to our local churches and synagogues and other religious organizations here in the Ithaca and Tompkins County area?
Yes, we have started doing that. It's a slow process because we have to deal with, and I'm sure Jonathan has to deal with this also, the question of people being afraid to speak out against Israel for fear of being seen as anti-Semitic. So part of what we're doing is trying to separate criticism of Israel and its actions from anti-Semitism and increase people's comfort level with speaking out.
I'm glad to hear that. As a general principle, I want to be able to criticize say, the government of India, and not have people saying, "Oh, you must be anti-Hindu." But
Yes.
have you run into this, Jonathan? A criticism of your stand?
Yes, it's been really interesting to see what criticisms have come up because, like I said, this was not received warmly in Albany amongst representatives. And when they made their complaints, they really did not address anything in the bill itself, right? They talked about Israel's right to exist, which has really nothing to do with what this bill is talking about around having our tax money going to war crimes. And then also that trying to somehow connect it to anti-Semitism because Israel claims itself as a Jewish state. And as we know, there are thousands of Jews in the U.S. millions of Jews in the U.S. who are against the policies of the state of Israel. And this idea that the state of Israel is somehow a stand-in for Jews is itself extremely problematic as an idea. And so we certainly push back on any insinuation like that. It was a call from Palestinians living in some of the most desperate situations who have their human dignity and human rights denigrated on a daily basis. And it's currently being subsidized by the state of New York, and we have a way to stop it.
Okay, as we come to the end of our program with Deirdre Silverman and Jonathan Brenneman, can you give us the website once more? And is the text of the bill on your website? Can we read it there?
Yes, the bill can be found on the website. Both the name of the bill and the name of the website are Not On Our Dime. So you can go to notonourdime.com and there's a one click to find the bill.
So thank you to Jonathan Brenneman of the Not On Our Dime campaign here in New York State, and Deirdre Silverman of DSA, of Ithaca DSA, and the Ithaca branch of Jewish Voice for Peace. I am Wayles Browne. Listen to us again in 2 weeks.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.